A woman's attempt at putting a headstone over the grave of her late father, a World War II veteran, is denied here at this graveyard in the Tampa Bay area. And the reason for that is so mind-boggling, the family could only turn to 8 on Your Side's Shannon Benkin for answers. Hey there, folks. JB Buno here with you live on WFLA Now. Great to have, of course, from Better Call Benkin that you see on WFLA News, Channel 8 on Your Side. Shannon Benkin, our 8 on Your Side investigator, joining us here, everybody, on WFLA Now for a story that it seems like every week Shannon comes to us with stories that you just cannot believe. And this is just the latest one here, Shannon. We're looking here at the marker, the grave marker here for William Bridges, not Williams Bridges. You see there the typo on this. How did this all transpire and go down?
Yeah, and as you mentioned there's even a typo on it. And I stood here at the grave site with Margie Bridges there, and she's telling me, crying, saying her father died with shrapnel in his chest. He served our country, and now she's battling to try to get a headstone for him. And who would have thought that you would have trouble getting a headstone for anyone, but particularly someone who served our country as he did?
Yeah, this is the latest story that Shannon's had here. And as a reminder here, folks, the one that you saw last night on WFLA News Channel 8, the woman that cannot pay her taxes because the IRS tells her that she's dead. That's another story that a lot of folks reading this morning here on WFLA.com and the WFLA app. But let's stay here on this story. Talking about William Bridges here, a veteran of World War II, laid to rest here in Tampa Bay, here in the city of Tarpon Springs, denied a tombstone here, and this is all revolving around this technicality, Shannon, and the family trying to break through this technicality, trying to find some way for this all to just work out so that they can put a proper headstone here at the grave of the man that you're seeing here in the center of your screen. And you've been doing digging now on this story. You've been conducting interviews, and have you really gotten a solid answer as to why this hasn't happened yet?
Well, we got an answer from the city of Tarpon Springs, but whether it will make sense to any of our viewers out there, it certainly doesn't make sense to me. It's something that I think, and I think a lot of people after they see this story will think that this needs to be changed. It's one of those old regulations that, until someone makes some noise about it, until, they bring something up, nothing happens. And this is Cicadia Cemetery in Tarpon Springs. A lot of our viewers may recognize it. It's a very historic cemetery. It's on a historic registry of historic cemeteries. It's a beautiful cemetery with beautiful headstones, and you can see some of the headstones here in our video. And this woman, Margie Bridges, that you see there, a lot of her family members are buried there. They all get the same headstone. Everyone has the same headstone that has their picture on it. It's very simple, their name, when they were born, when they died. And in this case, they also want to put, that he was a World War II veteran. You see there it says Granny. All of her family's there. She wants a headstone like everyone else's, but for some reason they will not allow her to just do it. And we'll get into a little bit more of the why.
And look at this closely here. We froze this here for a second. We talked about this a moment ago, but if you're just joining us here on Facebook Live or on WFLA.com or on our app, you can see here there's even a typo here on this name. So not only does he not have the headstone that his daughter, of course, wants to honor him with that headstone here at this graveyard, but we also have a typo. They misspelled the name. It says Williams Bridges.
Yes.
This is a World War II veteran.
Yeah.
This is usually Stars and Stripes, a full. Nothing stops there being an honor for a World War II veteran, and we can't even get a headstone, or we can't even get a funeral marker here that is spelled properly. How did this exactly happen?
It seems extremely disrespectful, doesn't it, to have a misspelling in this. But I will say that Margie, while she's upset about the regulation with the city of Tarpon Springs, you see there it mentions the funeral home that put this out there. She's not upset with the funeral home because this funeral home, she says, has been really kind to her. And this was a temporary marker. Obviously, someone made a mistake. They probably did not think that this marker would be there very long. It was supposed to be a temporary marker so that the headstone maker knew where to put the headstone. But when Margie called to order the headstone, they called the city, because this is a city-owned cemetery, and they have to get what's essentially a permit to put the headstone up. The city will not grant the permit.
And if you want the full story, folks, it's coming your way tonight on WFLA News Channel 8, a Better Call Benkin investigation that you'll see tonight at 6 o'clock. When you get home, turn on your local television station, to your NBC station, 8 on Your Side, WFLA, and you'll see it tonight in our 6 o'clock newscast. And we're going to get to questions coming in here. You can use hashtag HeyShannon, and we'll feature some of your comments, such as Jaden here saying hashtag HeyShannon, go get him.
Thank you, Jaden.
Some words of encouragement here from our audience. We'll get to, if you use hashtag HeyShannon, we'll get to your comments here in the Facebook Live comment section. But tonight at 6, I would imagine that as far as City of Tarpon Springs leaders, you went through the Rolodex, so to speak, if there even is such a thing as a Rolodex anymore. But you went through the Rolodex to contact everybody as far as who is connected to this story, who could do something about it, and you didn't really get that many responses.
Well, I got a couple of responses, but essentially in the beginning it was just, this is the way we do it in Tarpon Springs. Go away. And if you know me, I don't go away. So all I did was try to find the next person in line, and call more and more people. And now I have some of these numbers saved in my cell phone. We're going to keep calling. I'm not going to stop until we get this man the headstone that he deserves. And we spoke with the city manager, we spoke with the mayor, we spoke with the city attorney, and they do have a regulation that they're pointing to as to why he cannot get this headstone, and they're not backing down. But I found some other people that may think that it's time for this to change.
So let's get to some of the questions and comments coming in. You can use hashtag HeyShannon, hashtag HeyJB as well. And we got here from Dalia Lugo, hashtag HeyShannon, why after all these years and allowed to be buried in that cemetery, denied a tombstone?
And that's something that I pointed out is, that he was just buried. The city allowed him to be buried. Didn't they think that he would also want a tombstone? It's, usually you're buried, you get a tombstone. It's just what happens, right? But they seemed surprised when they wanted to put up a tombstone.
How about this one here from Sharon Brown, hashtag Shannon, go get him. This is disgusting to our veterans' memory. And yeah, I'm seeing that word, that D word, disgusting, quite a bit here in the comment section.
Yes, I couldn't agree with you more, Sharon, and that's why, when I saw this come across my desk, and I just had to, read a couple lines of Margie's story to know that this was one that I wanted to go after and try to solve for her. As Kimberly says, unacceptable. I will say Tarpon Springs, they have this regulation. I would imagine after the story airs, and maybe during this broadcast here, we'll hear from more people that this has happened to. This is not an isolated case.
But you know what? It shouldn't just be a black and white sort of case, right? If there is special circumstances such as this one, let's be real. These are special circumstances. We have a World War II veteran here. There's an old technicality in the City of Tarpon Springs law that should be maneuvered around. Right. Is there at least a forum for this woman to go to? Can she at least plead her case to the City of Tarpon Springs at a meeting, a local meeting, to say this is the way of it? And can't there be an exception for something like this?
I'm trying to get her that exception. She had done everything the way that she thought she needed to do. She had gone everywhere and talked to everyone, and she said finally the mayor told her, sorry, you have to talk to the city attorney. You've already talked to him. This is why we pay him to do this job. You cannot do this. She has to get a court order. And, she called some attorneys to find out how to go about that. It was going to cost her, JB, about $3,000 just to go through probate to get the court order for what I call the privilege of being able to buy the headstone in the first place, which is about $1,200. So thousands of dollars to get the headstone. Again, a headstone that looks like everyone else's headstone.
And really the only ones that we can find that seemingly are saying, as Shannon put it, seemingly saying, oh, this is the way of it, are these community leaders in Tarpon Springs. Everyone that we have talked to, or at least every commenter that we've had here on this live stream, is in disbelief that this is actually happening. Yeah. That the year is 2021, and we're talking about something that's probably decades old, a technicality that's decades old in Tarpon Springs. And we can't even update things, or at least allow for an exception in this case.
Well, we're working on that. We think that there should be an exception, and it needs to be changed because, like I said, it's not an isolated case. And right. the regulation that they're pointing to is basically, it's very generically written that says that the owner of the plot is the person that has to give permission for the headstone. Well, in this case, the owner of the plot is buried there. He's dead. And so that's the problem. They have to be able to get permission. And if he had a will and he had an executor of that will, then it wouldn't be a problem because that would be her. But in this case, and in a lot of people's cases, they don't have wills. He was older. He put everything he had into his daughter's name to make sure that there was no problem. So she had the house, she had the car, she had everything, bank accounts, everything. They never thought they would need to put this in her name.
Let's get to some of the questions and comments that are coming in. We have another 5 or so minutes here with 8 on your sides. Shannon Benkin, of course, from Better Call Benkin, and we can feature your comments. If you're outraged about this story, maybe you have a question. How about Kimberly Coprin here in the Facebook Live comment section, #HeyJB, just the word that she is using is unacceptable. Catherine here, #HeyShannon, what is the rule?
Yeah, and it was, as I was just describing here, Catherine, they are pointing to this regulation that says that the owner of the headstone has to give permission, and obviously they can't get permission from Mr. Bridges because he's deceased. So, you know, if you have a headstone, particularly in Cicadia, because I haven't found any other cemetery that does it this way, but if you have a headstone that you have a plot, rather, that you have purchased in advance, someone in your family has purchased a plot there, you need to make sure that you either have an executor of your will or you have a piece of paper written in your file with Cicadia that says who in your family has permission to order the headstone. If you don't, you could run into this trouble unless we're able to get this changed. So if you think this should be changed, you know, it's particularly if you live in Tarpon Springs, call your city commissioners, let them know because they are starting to look into it. If they hear from you, it could have an impact.
And this is really one of those stories, folks, where that phone call, you won't believe the results that could get as far as calling your city commissioner, calling your representative in city government and saying that you cannot believe that this is allowed in the city in which you reside, where your tax dollars are being spent. Let's get to this comment here from Valentina LaRue, #HeyJB. No vet should be denied a tombstone. Why does he have a marker? Doesn't the government give plaques to those who have served?
Very, very good question. So this woman, Margie Bridges, like I said, she wanted to get this headstone that looks like everyone else. You can see there in her family. That's her mother's headstone there to the left. She wants one that looks like it. She knows about the marker from me. She didn't know about it. I told her that about how you can get a free marker through the government, and she wants to put that at the foot. So she wants the footer to be that and the headstone to be the one that looks like everyone else's. And I am currently trying to help her get that. Actually, I just got off the phone before I stepped over here with Jim Rudolph, a veterans funeral home over in Clearwater. We've done numerous stories with him in the past, and he has agreed to try to help her expedite that process, set up an appointment soon to get that marker as soon as possible. So at least he'll have something that honors him and honors his service to this country. But she's not stopping there. She wants the headstone like everyone else in the cemetery.
Linda Parker, #HeyShannon. He fought for their freedom. Are they serious? Here's something I'm going to ask here. The optics of this.
Yep.
If you're the city of Tarpon Springs, if you're the mayor or you're a commissioner there with the city of Tarpon Springs, and you have Shannon Benkin, 8 on your side investigator, calling you up, talking about how a World War II veteran can't get a tombstone on his grave because of a technicality, you would think that the city or officials in the city would start to say, hey, maybe this is something we should really look at before it becomes, you know, the first story that you're going to see on the 6 o'clock news tonight. And there haven't been those results. Sometimes what we have here is a situation where we have an 8 on your side investigator such as Shannon. They call and then immediately we'll get results faster just because the city of Tarpon Springs or any city that we're talking about here at the center of a controversy, they don't want that sort of publicity facing their city. But you really haven't gotten that sort of a response, Shannon, or have you in your phone calls and working on this story?
That was the hope, JB, is that, you know, they would fix this. They would say, oh, we didn't realize.
We don't want this publicity. We don't want the city of Tarpon Springs to be known for for this.
Right. And we were hoping that they would, quickly fix it or make an exception. But now I've learned that, this isn't, an exception. There's been others that have had similar situations. So perhaps that's why they can't, because they need to change the regulation first. But we were hopeful that that would happen. And, I spoke to the mayor several times. I told him we are doing a story on this. And, are like, as one of our commenters, are you serious? Are you sure this is your stance on this man's tombstone? And they say that their hands are tied, that they believe that they're getting the advice from their city attorney that they need to to uphold this unless it changes. But as any city regulation, this is not a law, it's not an ordinance. At first they said that there was an ordinance, people were talking about an ordinance. I asked for that ordinance. I actually put in a public records request for that ordinance. Of course, nothing came. So then they said, oh no, it's not an ordinance, it's a regulation. So they sent me the regulations. All regulations can be changed. They just need the city commission to say that they want to change it. It can be done. So they've had a couple meetings, regular meetings, and I've been pushing them to maybe add this to the agenda. So I'm hoping that after the story airs tonight and the city commissioners that maybe haven't taken a look at this yet will take a more serious look and, have a meeting and talk about it and see what can be changed.
There isn't a single person here in our comment section saying, oh, I get it. You got to follow the rules. Rules are rules. Policy is policy. Look, you see those pictures there? This city of Tarpon Springs, if you're watching, do the right thing. You're talking about a technicality in a law that no one is in favor of here in our Facebook. Usually when we do a story like this, you'll find a split. Let's just say we're talking about masks. You're going to find a divide between our audience on that particular subject. Some people who are in favor of them, some people who do not believe that masks are the best mitigating tool for COVID-19. This is one of those stories. We don't have a single person here saying, I get it. I get why the city of Tarpon Springs is doing this. The comment section, we're putting up some of the kinder comments here, some of the very, very mean ones that are being targeted here, focused on the city of Tarpon Springs. We're not putting up here just because we're trying to keep it clean here, folks, as far as our news broadcast goes. But I hope that there's some city of Tarpon Springs officials watching either this stream here now or after it's aired, or of course the story that's airing tonight on WFLA News Channel 8. How about this comment here? This is some of the stuff we're talking about here. Crystal Clark, #KJB. Wow. He may not have said, I want a headstone, but he also didn't say, I do not want a headstone. If he is allowed a burial without permission, he is allowed to have a headstone. Unfortunately, I have to use the word common sense.
Yeah. And I asked the mayor that because the mayor said at some point in our conversation, well, how would we have known what he wanted on his headstone? And I said, well, how about you start with his name, when he was born and when he died? It's pretty common sense, as he says. That's what is on most people's headstones. This woman wants to also add that he was a World War II veteran, but, she doesn't need the cemetery's permission for that. She's going to get that marker, and I asked the city, are you going to give the U.S. government a problem over putting this marker down? And they said, oh, no, if the U.S. government wants to do it, we have to do it. So she's going to do that. So hopefully soon, within a week or so, we will be able to show you guys the marker, and at least that this guy has more dignity at his headstone, at his gravesite, and then hopefully he'll get a headstone soon.
That would be nice. Let's get to Kathy here. Warren, #Shannon. Why is he different from any other family members? They got one. Why can't he? We've gone over this here time and time again, but a lot of this comes down to the plot of land that we're talking about here, because if we're talking about a different cemetery in a different section of Florida, we're talking about a very different story, or really a non-story, because he would have had the tombstone by now.
Right. But I think Kathy's mentioning the other family members in this family and why they have one. Because there's the mom there. She's got one. A lot of people in Margie's family have these tombstones, and she wants the same one. The difference is, because I asked the mayor about this and I asked the city attorney, how did you give them a headstone? Because this family didn't know. If they knew about this problem when Mr. Bridges was alive, they would have taken care of it, right? And they said, well, it depends on who owns the land. For example, when the mom died, if the dad was still alive, theoretically he could have given permission for the mom to be buried there because they jointly owned those plots. But I think that if he, had known about it back then he would have known, hey, I need to take care of this for myself. And since he took care of everything else to make sure everything else was tied up, all of his loose ends, I think he would have taken care of this, and he didn't. Because like you said, who wants to be buried and not have a tombstone?
Or a marker with a typo on it.
Yeah. That bothers you, doesn't it, JP?
You can tell, right? It's bothering me.
Yeah.
Can we get some white out for that S? It's not hard to go right, see it right there.
Yep.
Can we pause it here for a second? Do you guys see that we have, put it up here again, the typo here. Look at it. Here, full screen. There it is. Williams W. Bridges. And while I understand that it's not a major typo, it's not as if we're throwing a random Z in there somewhere. It's still a typo nonetheless. And the very last thing that this man needs in his memory is his name misspelled. We got the first name there mostly. We got the middle initial, the last name. We just need to strike that S. Can we get some white out for the guy?
Maybe someone could go out there and take care of that today.
That would be that's the least that should be done here with this story. Shannon, what's coming up tonight at 6 o'clock on WFLA?
Well, tonight at 6 o'clock, we are going to talk with some of these, a city commissioner. As you mentioned, we tried to talk to the city commission. When I didn't get anywhere with the mayor and I didn't get anywhere with city commission or city attorney, I decided to send an email to all of the commissioners. The mayor's one of those commissioners, so I think there's 5 total. Mayor's one of them. Out of the 4 remaining people that could, vote to change this, one person, Jacob Carr, returned my email, and he did it immediately. And so I give him credit for that, and we set up an interview, and he agreed to at least take a look at it and research and find out why they have this rule. He's a fairly new commissioner, younger than some of the other ones. So he has decided to at least look into it. So tonight at 6, you'll see what he found, what he was told as to why they do it this way, and what could be done to change it. So, join us tonight. But I did hope that you would play the sound that we have from Margie. We're talking about this. We're trying to make this case for the city commissioners that might be watching and for our viewers that are watching. But no one can say this better than Margie herself.
The National Guard came out to his funeral. They folded the flag, they saluted him, they played taps. He needed to be recognized, and they did that. Why he can't have a monument that just has his name on it, I don't understand.
I don't understand either. Shannon's been explaining it to me for the last 2 weeks, and I still don't understand why we can't just get this done. And I want to acknowledge that we have some commenters here pointing out that we have some really, really, really kind-spirited people here in the Facebook Live comment section saying that they want to at least contribute, or some people apparently that are offering to pay for the headstone itself. Some people have been pointing the family in the direction of a particular company that's going to be able. There's a lot of help coming through here in the Facebook Live comment section. We really appreciate it. This is the type of stuff that social media is good for. We know what social media is not good for. It's not good for when it comes to finding where we're divided and finding how, we draw the line in the sand, and some people feel this way about an issue and others feel that way about an issue. We know how divisive social media can be. But every now and again, a story comes around where there's no division. It's just a call to action where we can actually do something helpful for a particular person or a particular family or a particular cause or someone's memory, as we have here in this case. So what we did in the Facebook Live comment section, we put Shannon's email, bettercallbenkin@wfla.com. Anybody who is looking to reach out to the family or wants to just do something, whether it's contact the city of Tarpon Springs and get answers or submit an inquiry as to why this was allowed to happen, or if you want to actually help out the family, just shoot an email over to bettercallbenkin@wfla.com. And again, if you haven't, there's another story that Shannon's been working on that is also pretty surreal. It's the woman who cannot pay her taxes, the IRS says, because when she calls up the IRS, they say, "You're dead." Shannon, where do you find these stories?
Can't make this stuff up, JB. But, we have a lot of people, thankfully, a lot of our viewers, as you mentioned, people are wanting to help. We have a lot of kind viewers, and we have people that just run into roadblocks sometimes. That something happens, like this poor woman trying to pay her taxes and she finds out she's dead. And I'll add, the story's up on our website. This didn't just happen one time. It happened 3 times. So now that it's happened the 3rd time, she's sick and tired of it. She called me for help, and we're trying to help her work it out between the IRS and Social Security. There she is there getting, letters out of her mailbox, and that's the letter saying, sorry, we can't process your return, you're dead. So we're always looking for, these quirky stories, these weird things that people cannot solve themselves, and be able to step in and try to make a difference.
The year is 2021. The IRS thinks that woman apparently is no longer living. We also have a tombstone, or the lack of a tombstone here on the grave of a World War II veteran right here in the Tampa Bay area. These stories that you seemingly cannot believe actually exists, of course, uncovered by 8 on Your Side, Shannon Benkin. The full story tonight on WFLA News Channel 8 at 6 o'clock. Don't miss our Better Call Benkin investigation into the tombstone denied for a World War II veteran in the city of Tarpon Springs. For Shannon Benkin, I'm JB Buno. More ahead in the hours ahead on WFLA.com and the WFLA app.